Next, we have the water consumption analysis. Mr. Buzz Pishker, Director of Water Utilities.
Mayor, Council, City Manager. It's interesting. It's been an interesting morning so far, interesting afternoon, I guess. But really, my mission here today is simple but complicated. I certainly want to update Council and our residents on some of the inquiries we're receiving into high water usage consumptions. Certainly want to answer your questions. And I certainly want to address the specific questions that Council posed on Thursday. And of course, I'm here at the request of Council Member Wolf, and I appreciate the opportunity actually to talk about this topic because I think it's important. I think it's on people's minds. And maybe going with the theme of the day, I think our utility in Arlington, our utilities department has an excellent reputation. And although we aren't building a building, I hope that some of the things that will transpire today will help continue to build the affinity and the credibility of that utility through this process. So that would be my mission. And the other thing is, I'm not giving you a speech. So if any of you have a question that you feel compelled to answer, I'll try to be slow enough that you can raise that question as we move forward. This is kind of a deja vu exercise for me because my first job in the water industry in 1970 was the meter reader for my hometown. And the irony is that there was only one. So there was no question if there was an error who the problem was or whatever. So as I was kind of thinking about how I would approach this topic, you go back in time as you get older, and so there's a lot of stuff going on here. But what I want to talk about is the first page you see up here is it's a draft copy, but it's something that where I started out, so to speak. And the message is where we were, and we were this way basically until the late 1990s. We had meters in pits, I have one here, and we had water company employees who went out and opened the meter pit and read the meter and wrote it on a sheet of paper. And then from that reading, because remember, a water meter reads like an odometer, we'd subtract the last reading from that reading and get a consumption and usage, which is the second column you see there. And I just put this together. I assumed it was a new meter set, and I just kind of walked through 6 or 9 months of usages. So as you can see, in February, the meter read 017. The January reading was 001, so the usage then becomes 16, and then we would bill from that. So that process went on day after day, and so you got a manual reading, you got a manual written usage or written meter reading on a sheet of paper, then you got a manual calculation to get the usage. And then, of course, we sent the reading to the billing system. So up until the late 1990s, that's how we did business in Arlington. As we move forward, we then began to use other tools to replace that sheet of paper. And I have with me one of those devices that we currently use today. And this device does the same thing that sheet of paper did, only there's a manual input and a manual reading, but there's no manual calculation. And in fact, we take this unit at the end of the day and transfer the information on it to our billing system, which calculates the bill, and then of course it goes out to the customer. Now, what's changed? Well, what's changed is that in this case, back in the day, the meter reader would have known what your past readings were. And there were times in my experience that people decided they weren't really going to go visit your meter. They were just going to kind of look at that and decide what it was without going to read the meter. So as we move forward and we adopted this technology, now the meter reader goes out and he has no prior information. So in essence, to get a reading, they basically have to go to the meter pit and visit the meter. The other thing that happens today with technology and this handheld device is that when I take a reading, if I'm the meter reader, and I get a reading that is out of range, and we have ranges built into the programming here, the handheld device will say, hey Buzz, that reading doesn't fit the range, look at it again, okay? And so for me to actually put a reading in that's out of the normal range that we've established, I have to actually read it again and then re-input it and actually override the system, which is doable. When that reading is taken at the end of the day and we come in and put it in the billing system, today, that billing system, as we put the readings in and begins to calculate the bills before we send them out to the customer, has another out-of-range report, and that comes up and someone else looks at those readings and says, gee, should we get a reread? What's going on here? So there's a significant amount of fail-safes now in the system. There's a lot less manual activity where human error is human error. You transpose numbers. And then back in the old days, the people had to take the information off this page and actually key punch it into the system, right? It wasn't automatically uploaded, so we have opportunity for errors there. So that's where we are now. And I guess the way I'd like to kind of wrap this portion up is say, where are we going? And that would get you to here. If you recall, a couple years ago, we did a pilot on an automatic meter reading system. We talked about a lot of things that it brings to the fore. We talked about cost efficiency, lowering costs, those kind of things. And I just wanted to let council know our progress to date. We said we would put 9,000 in a year, and we're right on target to do that. We started with 17. At the end of this year, we'll be right about our 35,000. But as we move forward, not only does that system, again, eliminate more manual inputs and interactions, but it also is going to provide us some information that in this industry for my entire career has been not available to us to help customers. Customers help themselves as well as help the water utility, help them help themselves. So with the advent of that, we are going to get information like this. And I've got 3 separate graphs. These are actual users in our system in August this year. So we haven't made these up. These are, I won't tell you the name of the people, that's not appropriate, but this is actual information from our system. And what you'll see here is a graph of someone who looks like they're probably doing some irrigating. Can't say that for sure, never would, but it looks like there's some consistency to higher consumptions over days, et cetera. Long and short of it is they used 60,600 gallons, and that's $271. And the reason I say that to you is that's a lot of money, and I get it, but you can use 60,000 gallons pretty easy with the irrigation, et cetera. The next slide I want to show you is a customer who in this month, this is a daily report. I showed you a monthly report, the first one. This is the hourly daily report. That was by day, right? Look at the usage pattern of this customer in a day's time. Almost no usage until 9:30 at night. That seems incredible, doesn't it? And then at 9:30 at night through 11:30, looks what happens. And by the way, this customer with this usage pattern, if it went through 30 days in a month, would use the same amount of water that the person I just showed you in a month. They'd use 60,600 gallons, and they'd be paying a $271 water bill. They would probably tell you, nothing's changed in my life and I don't even use any water during the day. How could that possibly happen? It can happen in a few hours at night due to whatever, malfunctioning irrigation systems, leaks, whatever. I wouldn't suggest this is a leak because I would see a higher usage on the other hours of the day, but for that. So that's the other thing. And then the third thing I want to show you is another customer's consumption. Again, this is hourly consumption. And this, I would suggest, and I drew the red line across it, depicts a customer who over a day's time may well have what I'm going to call potential unintended usage. You can call it a leak. You can call it a sprinkler system that comes on when they don't know it. You can call it a hose that's left running by the kids in the backyard for a day. You can call it any of those things, but it's something that they may not be conscious of. And as you can see, that lower bar, the one I drew the red line through, it's consistent every hour of the day. 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and right on through. Now, what I'm suggesting to you is if I just took that usage, forget anything else they've used in the house, the unintended usage, and I parlayed that over a month and did some math, they would have a $104 water bill for that usage for which in many cases, they wouldn't even be aware they used. It would be unintended. And then if they did irrigation, and then if they did have a swimming pool, or they did showers, or all the other things we use in typical household behavior, it would add on to that because it would be water used in addition to that. So what I want to show you is what we now can see and some of the benefits. As I said, we talked about AMI because we're going to save money, but we also said there's some other things here for the customer besides cost savings, although cost savings are important. This is a little snippet of what that's bringing to us to help them and to them to help themselves. And so it's another benefit of that system besides efficiency and financial effectiveness. The next thing that we looked at was what's going on with water production at our treatment facilities and what's going on at our raw water supplier. Do these things that are going on make any sense? Well, this shows the daily pumpages or production of our 2 treatment facilities over the prior 3 years, as well as actually the prior 4 years. And then this kind of summarizes what, missed the page. There we go. Those are the totals. And what you can see from this slide is that clearly the consumption in 2015, month of August, is certainly up from 2014. And it's a little bit up from 2013 also, and then 2012. But 2012, 2011 were very high usage years for us. We had a very long dry spell. It was before I moved here. Actually, the proper year is 2011. A lot of people remember that. So we're trying to use that as our barometer year. But you can see, as high as we think the production was this year, look at 2015 compared to 2011. Significantly, 2011 was significantly higher. And that's going to be important as I talk about the next few slides. So, but long and short of it is, if you look at 2014 August, 2015 August, we're up about 20%. Now let's fast forward and talk about what we build. And again, this gives you some idea of what's been going on in billing. Again, we use 2011. That's that magic year that everybody remembers. You can see the production for the 3 months, what we call the summer months, is significantly higher. You can see that 2015, when you put the totals together, is actually lower than 2014, but look at what happened, the difference between June and August. Significantly different. So the long and short here is, in my opinion, is that we looked at our raw water supplier. Their production for August is up about 20% compared to budget. We've now looked at our pumpage. It's up about 20%. Now we've looked at consumptions, and they're up significantly. So it appears there's some synergy, or some, not synergy, there's some logic between what's going on. And so our hope is that we'll be able to convey a message. It appears the systems are working. Now, what's causing some of the issues is maybe unique to the individuals, but those things at least seem on the surface to be in order. The other thing I wanted to make sure everybody's aware of is that August of 2015 was the first August we've had since 2013 that didn't have some kind of water restrictions going on. So, you know, that's just a fact. The other thing that I think we're running across from time to time with customers is people forget that their August bill is their July usage in a lot of cases, and that their August usage is their September bill and vice versa, because there's a time lag in billing water. And so some of that, I think, gets into the discussion, or should get into the discussion. I can also tell you that our September production at our treatment facilities is up compared to the past 10 years. So I guess the message is I anticipate seeing another month or so of significant consumption, because all things lead me to assume that, and I wanted to make sure everybody's aware of that. Our pumpage is still up. We're coming off a high pumpage August, which is now going to get billed in September, so we need to be wary of those things. The next thing I'd like to talk about is we move on to the billing. And by the way, these numbers are all post-billing information. And we get some reports and we track some things. And what you'll see on the sheet is that obviously the debate and the high consumptions, as I hope everybody knows, are not unique to the city of Arlington. It's become a metroplex, it's become a regional thing. Read an article in Austin, so we're not alone in this, and everybody's grasping to come up with the magical message that makes it all go away. And I'm not sure there is one, but we're going to do everything we can to get to the ones that we need to get to, and actually each situation may actually be a little bit unique in itself. But the long and the short of it here is, when I show you this, I'm telling you that every bill we send out isn't perfect. If you notice, we have 99.99% accuracy, but quite frankly, we're not perfect. And so why do we treat every inquiry on its merit and make sure we do the proper due diligence and show the customer proper respect? Because you know what? We aren't perfect. And so that's what this slide should show you. And the other thing I want to remind everybody is August isn't the only month of the year that we receive inquiries on high consumptions. We get inquiries year-round. Typically, in the winter months, it's due to a leak or some other reason. But it's not just unique to August, but clearly August this year has been a little bit unique, although not higher than 2011. But I think that's a fact of life. Okay, now here I want to talk about what creates a bill. And the thing I would suggest that you look at is the upper left-hand box, Table 1. In 2003, we implemented inclining block rate structure. That means as you use more water and move up in usage, your cost per unit goes up. And what I would call your attention to, that in our case right now, the first 1,000 gallons of water that you use, actually the first 2,000 gallons of water you use, is billed at $1.78 a thousand. If you fast forward to any usage over 30,000, and I showed you 2 customers that had double that, it now becomes $5.25, which means it's almost 3 times the price. So the 1,000 gallons you use at 30,000 and on up, you're paying 3 times the amount as the 1,000 gallons you're buying at the first rate block, and then of course progresses up from there. So water usage above that 30,000 level gets very expensive in comparison to the cost of water at the first rate block. So what have we been doing to address the situation? I mentioned a few of these things at the last council meeting, but I want to make sure I remind everybody. So we said, well, maybe there's an issue with the billing system. Let's do some due diligence. So I had our staff take 10 random accounts, different usage levels, and do a hand calculation of the bills. They all proved out that the bills are being calculated properly. The other thing that we rely on is our city auditor independently looks at 25 random accounts a year and does the exact same thing, so that we make sure that we've loaded rates correctly and the system's working correctly. I remind you that the rate block I just mentioned has been in place since 2003, so we haven't changed rate blocks in the last year or two that would cause some of the anomalies. The rates listed, as you saw on the previous slide, have been in effect since January 1st. So we use the same rates and the same rate blocks to calculate your January bill, your February bill, on through the year, and of course the August bills and the September bills going forward. I guess the message, and it's kind of hidden down at the 5th bullet, but I think it's worth mentioning. Managing water usage with the rate structures that have been in place to encourage conservation and create what I'll call a financial awareness of usage is going to mandate that we, our customers, monitor usage like we do an electric bill or a gas bill. I lived in a world where I had $30 gas bills in the summer and $500 gas bills in the winter because it was cold, and we sometimes had cold stretches. So we did things with our thermostat and those kind of things because we learned the process. So I think what this is going to do, which may well be actually was the intent of the new rate structure, was to raise that awareness amongst our customers and the residents. Now, the good news is we're moving fast forward with the AMI program. We will make more and more of that information available to our residents. I will tell you that at this current time, we're completing a 2-year study with Texas A&M University to develop the method to provide the information. It is of no value for us to provide a bunch of information that no one can understand and then pride ourselves in communicating with our customers. So we're working very diligently with a 900 resident focus group to develop the slides and the web pages and those kind of fancy things that our customers will get to see, because we want them to be useful if they want to use them. That will be ending here this month. We anticipate a public relations rollout of that first quarter next year. And so, and at that time, as you saw in the earlier slide, we'll be about 35 to 40% concentration. So we'll have enough out there that we can provide information, and I think enough to help us learn how to handle those inquiries, because with more information will come more calls, and we need to make sure we're up to the speed to deal with those things. The other thing is, and of course I talked about the AMI, I think that's the last slide. The other question that was posed by council members was, what's impacting rates? And again, I know this is a consumption discussion, but I wanted to be responsive to that question. These exhibits actually come from us, from TRWD. We're not making them up. We're not guessing. So you can see kind of the trend on rates. And I'll show you 2 slides coming up I think will be very insightful for you. And again, this isn't casting aspersion on TRWD. It's giving you the facts of the land as we deal with them. Again, this is from their budget report, but what I'd like you, the second column over I think is very insightful. It shows an average, or it shows a residential water bill in Arlington of about $30. Now, the good news is that when you look at the other cities, we've got the lowest bar. We've talked to you about that, and we continue to do that, and I think we'll actually improve on our position this year, because I think the overall request we're talking about will actually make our position better compared to others. But the bottom line is basically a third of our bill to our customers is to recover the costs associating with getting raw water. And I think that's an important thing for everybody to know. The other insightful piece of information, again, provided by TRWD, is that their increase to us this year would result in a 3.6% rate increase alone to our customers. They're 30%, 30+% of our bill. If it goes up 10%, the math becomes very simple. So again, just to give you some insight into, I think, the question and how the two are interrelated. By the way, that allows us no additional revenue to run our business other than pay for raw water. I think an explanation is appropriate. I know most of you know this, but they're in the midst of significant capital investment. The integrated pipeline is the big building job going on, and that's having significant impact on their costs. There's a few other items listed here, but really that's the key driver of interest expense and where capital is being expended, and they're telling us that's what's really driving their rate increases. Here's what our budget looks at this year, and you'll see that these are the revenue increases that we've had to seek to continue to meet the entire cost of operating the water utility here. I can tell you that some of these are related to, you wonder why rates go up 5% and your costs are only going up 3.5%. The nexus between usage and cost that we've talked about is starting to make itself more evident. In other words, we may only need 3.5% more revenue based on last year's revenue requirement, but if usage goes down, we have to charge a little more for the less water to get to the same number, right? And so that's kind of what's going on here if you're taking pause at our revenue request. The good news is I'm very pleased to tell you and all of our residents that a lot of the work our people are doing, and I'm proud of all of them, to address cost recovery and cost reduction and efficiency is actually helping us fund the majority of what we're doing in-house without adding more cost to some of the other costs that are coming in from third parties. And I think you'll see a little bit of that in a second here. The other question was what's happening with TRA. As you know, TRWD provides us raw water. TRA treats our waste because we have a collection system, not a treatment plant. This is what's going on that frontier. And again, I would suggest to all of you, these are their numbers given to us. And in essence, they have significant capital investment going on in their systems also. And so that's what they say, and I believe is driving their rate increases to us. So you can see our two big cost drivers are third parties doing services for us. The next slide is one that you've seen in the past, but I was asked to say, what do you see going on in the future? That's what we see based on what they tell us is going to go on in the future. Now again, I think the important message here is all of these cost increases do not put a pipe in the ground in Arlington, do not pay an increase in cost of chemicals in Arlington. They provide no revenue to us. They're just a recovery of cost that we need to go to our customers for. The segue is, I think if I had another hour, I could show you a presentation that you'd be very impressed with that teeter-totter that I showed you and some of the things we're doing. We just had a main break out on Pleasant Ridge. Caused a lot of traffic problems and some costs. That main break leakage factor was 59,000 gallons a minute. A minute. It's 85 million gallons a day. We shut it down in an hour. That's record time. Just think if we couldn't find one of the valves. Just think if one of the valves didn't operate. And you talk about why that stuff's important. That's water going down the street that we've bought, treated, and pumped. And so all those things, as we do what we're doing, are having significant impact on our internal cost structure. It allows us to absorb some of these costs without 10 and 12% rate increases. Believe me, we're investing capital and we're doing a lot of very good things in our system. We're not letting it, and we're doing maintenance. The one thing I will never stand before you and tell you that because of other pressures, we didn't make our system the best it can be, because it will be the best it can be. And we'll find ways to deal with these things to mitigate some of the impacts on our customers. But that's what the future looks like. Those are the cards. But I think we're up to knowing how to handle them and do the best we can to mitigate some of the obvious impacts. But we will not let our system get deficient because we can't deal with the realities of some of the things coming at us. And with that, I will close and attempt to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, comments? Jimmy?
Thank you, Buzz, very much. And this is just a request, probably to Jay. We've had a lot of inquiries around the city, and the report you gave us today, Buzz, your explanation, I think it'd be great to get that on the website under a special caption so that we could send people to so that they can better understand some of the elements that go into determining what ultimately is their bill. There's a lot of steps to it. That was very informative, and I appreciate it. And it's just a suggestion. If we could carve out this piece of today's meeting and somehow get it on the web under the auspices of what's going on lately, since there has been some publication about it. This is not so much a response as it is just our story about it. So I think that'd be good. Thank you.
Great. I think it's a great idea. Michael?
Thank you. Just, over on page 10, you showed us, requested meter rereads, and then the adjustments had to be made. What was it that we discovered was the problem that ended up we having to make adjustments?
Yeah. As I told you, when we get out of range readings, the magical device that was a tool now seems to be a little bit of a weapon, so to speak, makes us override that to put a reading in. Sometimes those readings don't get checked out of the billing cycle. Sometimes somebody makes a decision, I think that's okay. If then the customer would call in and say, gee, I don't think that is okay. I don't think I use that kind of usage, then we would do the due diligence, as I told you, we will do for everybody, and check the reading and do those things. And then sometimes the reading is an error. There's a one-digit error. One-digit error on the second digit in is 20,000 gallons. So then we make an adjustment. The good news about water meters is they run like the odometer in your car. And if we overread it this month, it'll get corrected next month. We don't reset it, and that is lost. Now, that doesn't give people a lot of good feelings about it, but it is a fact. And but again, I feel good about where we're at in consistency and accuracy of bills, but we're not perfect. And I think it would be disingenuous if I stood here before you and told you we are. But we've got mechanisms and processes coming in place that I believe will drive that to zero.
Any other questions, comment? Lana?
I just say, well done.
Thank you.
We're fortunate to have you, and your method of communication is very clear. And I agree with Jimmy. Let's put this on the website so people can refer to it and see where it comes from. Thank you.
Robert?
Thank you, Mayor. Buzz, you're doing great. I'll tell you, there was a citizen that reached out, emailed, called, was very upset, and asked Buzz to call, not necessarily Buzz himself, but someone. He himself did it, which was great, and within a few minutes, I got an email from the citizen letting me know they feel a little bit better. The next day, they called and apologized. Basically, after learning more and having a better, clearer understanding of you know, their usage and what has been going on. And so just I know that's very labor intensive on your part and the folks that work with you, but you know, we're not here to, you know, cheat anyone or make gross errors. And you know, as you said, we're doing the best that we can, but we have a very transparent process. And so great suggestion, Councilmember Bennett, on putting this out there to the public. So good job, all.
Thank you for the time you took with the citizens and are taking with the citizens there, and the way you treat them and the way your department treats them. It is a great example for all of us there. Thank you, Buzz, for a very thorough report there too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.